From deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast. Brought to you by Texas Fish and Game Magazine, the voice of the Texas outdoor nation. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the host, the boast, the most roast, your buddy, Dustin Warncke, associate publisher here for Texas Fish and Game, as well as your buddy that's contributing editor, video columnist, a few other things that I do, obviously podcast host, and those kind of things that we do for the magazine. So I'm really excited about this show. You got a solo show with your buddy Dustin on a Sunday afternoon when I'm recording this, not when you're hearing this, but maybe a Sunday afternoon when you're hearing this. But Sunday afternoon with a cold beverage in my hand and a couple of cold beverages, actually, some choices I have here in front of me this show. Just we're going to sit down and talk for the next little while about finding ways to preserve trophies on a budget and finding ways to make those memories last without spending a ton of money on things that are, that are important to you. And so I think this is a subject that's been a long time coming. I always thought, I guess when I started the show, I'd run out of stuff to talk about, but the outdoors is so diverse. There's so many different tangents and sidebars and things that you can think about with boating and hunting and recreation and camping and hiking and fishing and all the different things that we do in the outdoors. That's the one thing why I call this the Best of the Outdoors podcast, because it's bringing you the best nationwide, not just of Texas and beyond, of what makes the outdoors awesome. And I just really cherish that chance that I get to share with you, however you are listening, downloading the show or streaming it on YouTube or streaming it wherever you're streaming it. I just thank you so much for doing so, because it helps me. This is helpful for me. This is very therapeutic for me, even as busy as my life is, and it continues to get busier, it seems like, every week. But this is my release. This is one of the ways that I like to give back to the outdoors that has blessed me so richly with so many different things, tangible and intangible. There are just a lot of great things there. So before I get into this podcast is brought to you by two sponsors today, and one main one that we're going to talk about today is Skull Hooker. They're going to be a way that we can preserve trophies on a budget, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. But our other sponsor of this episode is going to be Wilson Wildlife. And if you remember, I had Dr. Mike Wilson on the podcast a few episodes ago now, talking about whitetail deer, how they breed, their biology, having good water sources and those kind of things to grow trophy deer, to grow bigger bucks. Doesn't have to be the biggest buck of your life. Just things that help genetics and help overall with things that are good there. And so basically, Dr. Wilson has Wilson Wildlife gear, wilson-wildlife.com. That's wilson-wildlife.com. Really awesome site that he has, and he's revamping his website here pretty soon. But Wilson Wildlife has got a ton of different things that you can get for your property, for your hunting property, feeders, blinds, wide variety of different products, hunting accessories, you name it. HB hunting accessories, Spartan cameras, Texas Hunter products. This is the new one for them. Texas Wildlife Supply. And if you remember, Texas Hunter Products also advertises with Texas Fish and Game Magazine, so we're a big fan of theirs. But he's got a lot of these other companies on here that are great too. Athlon Optics, All Season Feeders. I mean, All Seasons. I know they sell a ton of those. They've got fire pits. They've got just all kinds of different things. Also in the corn department that you will need for your deer feeder. The Bait Corn Company has 5 different flavors: persimmon, green apple, peanut butter, white acorn, and red apple. I really want to try some of that. They've got some really cool stuff there for that. And so anyway, check out Wilson Wildlife. They're based in Tyler. They're going to open a retail store here pretty soon, but right now they're revamping their online store, wilson-wildlife.com, wilson-wildlife.com. They basically, I'll put the info in the short show notes and everything like that. They've got a banner that they built for us too that I've got up on our website at fishgame.com. So if you're in the Tyler area, obviously it's local to you, but if you are around Tyler, Texas, if you're around anywhere else, they're bigger things. They've got free delivery for a lot of those. They're bigger items like the stands and the blinds and the deer feeders and protein feeders and stuff like that they've got free delivery in most parts of Texas, and for doing that kind of stuff. So that's really, really, really exciting stuff. So wilson-wildlife.com. Give Dr. Wilson a call. Numbers on the website. You can check those guys out. All right. So next up, Skull Hooker. We're going to talk about Skull Hooker today. I want to give them a first on shout out. You can visit them at skullhooker.com. That's skullhooker.com. And basically what we're trying to do here is mount things that are trophies to us and basically do it on a budget. And they've got a wide variety of different things that you can do that with. They have the turkey hooker, where you can display a turkey fan and the spurs, the feet, and the beard, and or multiple beards if you have multiple beards. They have mini hooker for small heads. They've got little hooker for deer size heads. You've got the big hooker for elk size and larger heads. Their table hooker for displaying them on a table. You've got the big hooker and little hooker for displaying them on the wall. Trophy tree, which you can display a bunch in a corner and turn them in a lot of different ways. Bone bracket, where if you want to just do a skull cap and basically just display the antlers. The bone bracket's for you. The XXL bone bracket is basically a larger version of the bone bracket number one. And it's really good. And then you got the bone bracket skull cap combo if you want to kind of make more of an elegant look of your skull cap there in the middle of your antlers. That's kind of cool. And then a wide variety of other things. So anyway, there's a lot of really cool things that are going on with Skull Hooker, so definitely check them out. And we'll talk more about them as the show goes along. I'm just going to talk today about things that are important to the average guy, because I'm an average guy. Most of you guys know I'm not excessively rich. I don't have yachts and 100,000 acres to hunt and planes and all that other stuff that I do. You're pretty much down to earth wildlife guy, down to earth hunting and fishing dude. I've got a garage full of stuff that I used to hunt and fish. I've kind of accumulated over the years. I've got everything a man could ask for. I'm very blessed. But basically what I try to do is two things. Like Chester Moore always says, who's been on this podcast before many times, Christ, kids, and critters. I'm big about God, big about Jesus, big about the outdoors and children and getting children involved in the outdoors, and then about wildlife and wildlife conservation, preserving this beautiful thing that we have in this world. And what I'm going to do in the show notes is give you guys a glimpse of my office where I record this podcast most of the time whenever I do a studio podcast. And I've got photos of all kinds of different, scenery and stuff in my office. I've got 2 ram skulls that I did taxidermy on myself that I boiled out the heads and did a plaque mount on. I've got a hog skull that was dipped in camo, cryptic camo of all things. Looks like a dinosaur. It's pretty cool. I've got some skull cap, antler mounts basically, and then I've got a whole wall full of European mounts, and I've got a mark on the back of all those European mounts that basically talk about where there was, what year it was shot, what area it was shot in, just to give me memories of those memories. I've got some shoulder mounts around the rest of the office and some more Euro mounts. I'm really big about Euro mounts. I've got a red stag. Talked to you guys before about what I have around the office, but a red stag, Catalina goat, 2 rams, 2 white-tailed deer. And that's I've got about a 10 by 10 size office, and the walls are pretty full. So that's just kind of the way that it goes. But that all being said, the easiest way to preserve a trophy for yourself and for your kids, or preserve a memory of the outdoors, whatever the case may be, is to do it yourself. And Skull Hooker has lined up a good way to do that with a lot of their products. But a lot of guys will just go take a picture hanger, boil out a head, do a European mount, and boil out the head, skin the head, boil it out, and then take and put a picture hanger on the back of the skull. Or I guess frame hanger is the easiest way to explain what that is. It's basically just a little tab that you use to hang a picture on a nail or a screw, whatever the case may be, in the wall, and hang it up that way. And I've been doing it that way for a long time until I met Skull Hooker and some of the stuff that they do. And I got some Skull Hooker products sent over to Chester, who's doing a whole series on this subject about working man's trophy rooms. Okay, working man's man caves. Not the super elite that can all afford to go get a shoulder mount done and pay $500 on up for every whitetail they've ever shot to be shoulder mounted, or whatever the case may be. This isn't for them. This is more for people that are just honest, hardworking, salt of the earth people, which I know a lot of you guys listen to the podcast are that. Not the overly wealthy. down to earth people, younger people, whatever the case may be, that don't have a huge budget and don't want to spend a whole lot of money on preserving a trophy. And that's kind of what this show is about. So that all being said, I've basically will send you guys what I have collected over the years for my trophy room, for my man cave, my office. It's full of a lot of stuff right now. I've got a cool little boat thing that my mom gave me years and years ago that I've got gar heads on. All right, and then I've got a wall that I've got a big gar skin on. And the way I did that was just simply, I'm talking long nose gar, not alligator gar. Of course, you can do the same thing with them. But basically what you're doing is skinning out a head. Now, you may or may not need to skin out a gar head. You don't really have any skin to skin out since they have armor plating. But you basically will take with a white-tailed deer or a hog or anything like that and skin out the head. Remove as much meat and everything that you can. And you do that on a gar skull as well, and then boil. You can boil with some detergent, a little like cap full of bleach. Just some kind of cleaning elements. And basically, there's a lot of different ways you can boil. There's no wrong or right way of doing it. But boiling a few heads at one time is a lot more economical. What I even do for gar heads is simply bury them in an ant pile if I have one handy. Or just set them out in the sun and let them, after I've cleaned out as much as I can clean, basically let them kind of become one with nature and go through and have the experience of kind of getting bleached in the sun. And then you can easily move the jaw and set it up to where the jaw is open, kind of like you would a hog jaw if you open it up and want to show the tusk and kind of put a stick in between there. I use little pieces of wood skewers that I use for dinner and basically put them there and then glue the jaw joints together at that open point, and the jaw stays open, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I've got 3 gar skulls I'm looking at, 1 small gar skin, and then on my wall I've got a big gar skin of almost the lake record, not state record, but lake record on Lake Dunlap. I shot that gar in 2012 with Marty McIntyre and I. We did I've talked about this in the show before if you listen to any other podcast. We did an awesome bow fishing trip. It was a marathon. We bow fished for nearly 24 hours from dusk till dawn. Did a 4-lake marathon, and basically we were so tired while we were done with that. But I mean, we shot so many fish, it was crazy. But I shot what I believe was 4 inches short of the lake record. And I preserved that hide. I preserved that armor, that skin, that gar skin. All I did there was just scrape out as much as I could all the meat after I cleaned it out and used the meat for food. I cleaned out all the different entrails and all the stuff that's left, kind of splitting it from the bottom down. And opening up that chest cavity. And you got to be careful, because if you touch those roe, which are their eggs, you have issues with poison and stuff like that. Even if it touches the meat, it can poison the meat. So you want to be very, very careful with the eggs if you run any eggs in cleaning a gar, that it does not get on anything that you're going to eat. And then you wear gloves and make sure you don't get the gloves on anything after you touch the eggs that'll be anything that'll be of consideration there. So there's a couple of different things there, but basically what I did there is just skin it out and let it sit in the sun for a little while, hung it on a nail in the backyard, and completely covered the inside of it with borax, and just let it dry out. Let all that slimy, greasy stuff from the gar dry out and clean out, and then wash it every so often. And borax is kind of a cleaner, so you basically can wash it with borax and then let it dry again, and just until it gets all the stink out of it and all the slime and everything that gar naturally have. That's a great way to preserve a gar skull. So I mean, bow fishing is more like bow hunting anyway. So I guess I could group that as far as doing your trophies and hunting, because you kind of do hunt when you bow fish. But that's just a really neat way that I've used to preserve a gar skin, and that's one of the first thing people look at besides the hog that's dipped in Cryptek in my office. It's hydro dipped or hydrographically dipped in Cryptek. Is they look at that giant gar skin and they go, "Holy smokes, where'd you shoot that thing at?" It's like having a giant sturgeon or a giant pike or a giant a shark or anything like that, having the skin of something like that hanging upside down on a wall. it draws your eye, and it's a great memory because that reminds me of that night I was 24 hours in bow fishing world. Just eating up. We shot like 12 gar in under an hour, I think, on that trip, and we couldn't get them in the boat quick enough. I mean, they were spawning, and it was just a while. It was in March of 2012 when that happened. So great memory, and a great memory of the gar skulls that I'm sorry, I hit my microphone. The gar skulls that I've got over here to the left of me. They're really good reminders. And so you get out the eyeballs, you get out all the meat from the brain and the head and everything like that, and you let it sit in nature. Open up the jaw and glue the jaw joints with some super glue, and you've got a heck of a trophy there. And I've taught people how to do that for years now. I know that I've got mine, and they don't stink or anything like that if you do them right, or if you set them with an ant bed or whatever the case may be. As long as you just clean them out, go with some borax, let them sit in nature for a while, and nail them to a tree or whatever, and just kind of let it all dry out and use borax. It works really well. So for animal skulls, like I was saying earlier, you get to where you skin out the head, you try to carve as much meat as you can off of that, and then you boil. And the boil solution that I use, like I was alluding to earlier, is basically a mixture of laundry detergent, usually powdered laundry detergent, but you can use liquid too. I mainly use liquid laundry detergent for doing most of the laundry loads that I do. So, but you can use powder too, and basically you just boil that out, change the water every so often. And it gets pretty nasty. Okay, it's not the easiest way to go through and do this, but what you want to do every so often, every 15 minutes or so, is pick up the head with a coat hanger or a pair of tongs or some way that you can, and something you're not going to use for anything else, by the way, because this is a nasty job. But when you're boiling it out of gyro, you want to lift up the head and just start scraping off the meat with a knife or whatever you've got going on, the meat, the sinew, the gelatinous parts, and all the different parts that on a hog or a deer skull or elk skull or anything like that you're boiling out. Keep the antlers well above the water line, and you just don't want to make sure any of that gunk gets on them as well as you can. Do the best job as you can on cleaning it out, and try to get all the gunk off of it the best as you can. And don't worry about saving the bottom jaw on a deer. Nobody ever really mounts those for the most part either. And but the bottom jaw on a hog, you want to make sure, and this is true on the top jaw of a deer or any kind of animal that related to a deer, you want to make sure any teeth don't get lost in the grass when you're changing out water, because they will lose teeth if you boil them too much. So you don't want to boil. You don't want to overboil, but you don't want to underboil. You want to boil to where you get the point of, and there's different boil cycles. There's different, schools of thought on that. I'm not going to give you my fast and hard, this is how long you should do it and everything like that. It's going to vary depending on how much propane you've got in your turkey fryer burner that you'd be using to boil it out. I would not boil this out on the kitchen stove, guys. All right, it gets nasty. So what most guys do, and I forgot to preface that with this, is get a turkey fryer, do it outside with a propane tank. All right, with a propane tank on the turkey fryer, and the propane tank powering the turkey fryer, and basically a pot on top of the turkey fryer that is keeping your boiling and everything like that going on. And kind of a stock pot is what you really need. I've used some pots that I bought at Goodwill. I've used pots that I've gotten handed down from my grandparents and that kind of stuff. So I've used a lot of different pots and pans and stuff to do this with, but a good stock pot is what you need to kind of boil it, big enough to fit the head in, and but also shallow enough to keep the antlers out. You don't have too much water. And so you can use some bleach, a little bit of bleach. You can use a little bit of laundry detergent. You can use dish soap. I mean, anything that's going to break through and boil out the oils and those kind of things and make you have a clean skull. And then what I also like to do is let it dry out after I'm done boiling and getting most of the meat off and everything else. And some people even take this and will, not worry about doing this other stuff, and we'll bury it in an ant bed, and come back. The problem is the ants don't always do the best job of it. It's not really a clean process at all, but I mean, you can do that. I've heard of many guys that are doing that. I've done that to some degree to some of my Euro mounts in the early days of my hunting career. But it's not. That's just not. It takes a while, okay, for the ants to get through all that meat, and it stinks and everything like that. Boiling stinks, but it's not. It's probably the cleanest option that you've got compared to letting it decompose and do its thing in the wild. Another option you can get is I'm not saying this right, but the dermicidal beetles. I think I'm saying that right. Or derma something or other. The derm beetles is what they're called for short. And there are places that have derm beetles. You can buy derm beetles. So basically, what they do is these little beetles that look kind of like cockroaches or June bugs or something like that. They basically go in there and clean out a skull. And they work with a lot of the different archaeology and anthropologists and those kind of folks that do those kind of things that need not to boil at all, because the skulls and everything that they're so old and so fragile that there's an issue there with boiling them. But boiling is probably the most efficient method to get them done. And I learned all this stuff from my buddy Danny Berry over at DB Wild Game Processing and Taxidermy and DB Hunting Ranch, and then I work for his live sale business, which is Double B Exotics. So basically, that's one thing that I've learned is he'll have a big old giant like cauldron that he will put, that he'll boil on a propane powered turkey fryer. And he'll boil out several heads at once, and then we'll pressure spray the heads to get all the meat and gelatinous stuff off and everything like that. And then we'll turn around and let those dry out. And then he has peroxide. I was getting to this part next. The peroxide that he boils them in. They don't boil. They just kind of, I guess they do kind of boil, but anyway, the peroxide eats away what's left, and the peroxide leaves them with the bleaching that everybody likes out of nice skulls as well. And I just got a hog skull. I'll put a picture in the show notes for Jackson. Jackson's hog skull. And I was gonna have Jackson on this podcast, but he passed out on me earlier. He went to take a nap. But anyway, he did an awesome job on this hog skull. It is as clean as a whistle, because what he did was spray, boil it, spray it out with a pressure washer, and then soak it in peroxide. And the level of peroxide that he gets, I don't know where he gets his peroxide from, but it's a higher concentrate than you normally get from Sally's Beauty Supply or a place like that. But either way, you're letting it sit overnight, and the peroxide goes through and eats away all the other stuff. Another way you can do this is something that most people that do European mounts know, is to take a mixture of Sally Beauty Supply sells the mixture of this, the bleach and the peroxide that you mix together and make a paste. Paint it on there, spray it off, okay? And paint it on there and let it set overnight and spray it off, okay? So again, don't quote me on any of this stuff, guys. I'm just giving you some ideas of things that I've done over the years that have preserved a lot of the different trophies that I've got in my room. Even the wall of shame in my garage. I've got this garage wall that has nothing but like these dinky deer that I've killed over the years, and we call it the wall of shame. That I've got in the garage of European mounts of undesirable spikes and other ones that did not make the cut to go into the office. But overall, it's something that I just really enjoy doing. I mean, the boiling and the cleaning out and that kind of stuff is kind of a dirty, messy process. It's something to do you can do in the off season. But as far as that goes, you can also turn around and get a shoulder mount done and have a taxidermist take your deer from the field to the table and processing wise, like you can at DB Wild Game Processing and Taxidermy. And then you can turn around and have them do a shoulder mount. What you'd be looking like for a European mount is in the $100 range, $100, $200 range. For a hog is around $200. For a basic deer, I think they charge around $150 to boil one out and get everything like that. And I don't even remember if that comes to a plaque or not. But that's what you can pay somebody to boil one out for, because of the time. It is a time investment. You may just think, oh, they're just boiling a head, they're just cleaning out a skull. It's not that big of a deal. It shouldn't cost over $100. Well, it's a nasty job, and it's a lot of work that goes in there to do all that. Okay, if you got a ram skull, if you got a hog skull, if you got a deer skull, whatever the case may be, they all require special attention. You got to slip the ram horns. You've got to watch the head on the deer, and watch the teeth. You've got to watch the bottom jaw on a hog, so on and so forth. You want to make sure that you're cognizant of that before you embark on a journey of boiling it out yourself. And you also want to make sure if you're paying somebody to do it, that they do a good job for you. And like I said, here in Central Texas, that's Danny's who I use, but there are a wide variety of different people that you can get to do Euro mounts for you. And I've seen some of them run as cheap as like $75. Okay, and if you think you can get a good deal for that, check references, look at their website, look at their work, look at their Facebook page, whatever the case may be. You can get that done, but I mean that's the main thing that you got to watch out for there. So, but you can always get a shoulder mount, all right, and those run about $525 for like a whitetail on up to whatever you want to spend, $950 or so for bigger game. Up to a steer, and I think a steer costs like $2,000 to mount or something like that if you want to shoot a Watusi or something like that, an African steer or an American steer. You can spend that kind of money. But what I wanted to focus on in this show is something like the skull hooker. What I'm interested in more than anything is how I can preserve things without breaking the bank. And what Skull Hooker has done is come out with a whole lot of different elegant looking mounting options for European mounts. And specifically that's what I want to talk about on this show, because I've got a lot of plaques around my office, but the thing is they take up more room, they take up more space, and space is something that the older I get and the more stuff that we all accumulate the older we get. They've come up with, and I think I'm going to get one of these soon, is a trophy tree. And a trophy tree basically allows you to angle all your different animals, all your different European mounts. You can set several of them on a tree, and basically set the skull hooker and mount with the skull hooker trophy tree mount, and you basically can angle them different ways, have them pointing different directions, having them changing the different directions that they're facing, and those kind of things. It is the opportunities are just endless on what you have. But what you have with the skull hooker and some of their other products is something that's like the I'm going to pull up here, the Realtree Edition little hooker. This stuff is great, and I'll give you a basic rundown of what this is. But basically, you've got different mounting options as far as high or low. If you want to mount, with a more present, good presentation, or you can lower or raise, which is really cool. You've got wall mounts, you've got pedestal mounts for tables, you've got the trophy tree option, which they came out with I think last year, and I mean this is just incredible stuff. So the skull hooker is a unique mounting system and a great way to get a professional and elegant display for your hard-earned trophy that you can be proud of. The skull hooker mounting system comes complete with all necessary hardware to securely display your trophy for a lifetime of full, rich memories. They also offer a 100% return policy available under any of the rare circumstances that you have that you may want to return the item. But guys, they've really done this well, and I'm really impressed with the elegance that they can show a skull, because before I really thought all I had was an option was a bulky plaque. And I've got one mount, and it's got a Texas star on it. So for the Lone Star State. They got these made in Mexico, and they were welded, and basically it has it's similar to the skull hooker in a lot of ways as far as the design of it, but it's designed for a European mount. But it basically is just a star that has a screw coming out of it that goes into the skull, and it looks kind of cool. But the thing is, those are hard to find. You could only find them in Mexico. They bought a batch of them. They sold them. Skull hookers are always going to be available, and it's one thing you can make the trophies in your trophy room or house or bar area or whatever look really nice with doing nothing but skull hookers all over the place. And you can, like a table, a wall, a trophy tree, whatever the case may be. A turkey hooker. This is one of the best ways to, and there are a lot of different ways, guys, to figure out how to preserve a turkey fan. Okay, in a lot of cases, it's basically just taking the turkey tail off, or the fan off, and basically boraxing that area, drying it out so it doesn't stink, and then spreading out that fan and letting it kind of sit there, as you preserve it. And then they've got kind of a metal preservation part you can put the fan in, and then you can end up turning around and putting the feet with the I'm absent-minded today. Sorry, guys. The feet, it shows the spurs as well as the beard. I was talking about that earlier. Elegant way to show your trophy, man. I mean, it's just great ideas. And I really, my hat goes off to Skullhooker and what they've done, because if you see their booth at SHOT Show, which I do every year, they really make the elegance and the professionalism of a European mount look great. It used to be that European mounts were only the poor man's way to show off a trophy. They didn't have the money to spend on a trophy shoulder mount, or what the case may be. It's not that case with Skullhooker, because a lot of their products, all of their products, showcase the best way with a nice, elegant brushed aluminum, brushed steel, whatever their products are made out of. I'm not an expert on these things, but with the metal that's kind of polished in aluminum or polished brushed metal, looks really nice. And the thing you can also do is turn. The mounting system basically turns so you can show the better part of that rack, the better part of those antlers, the better part of those horns, and turn them whichever way you want to on some of their mounts. So that's really, really good stuff. And they've partnered with us to be an advertiser before, so I'm not giving all this without being an endorsement. But basically, I am giving an endorsement that their stuff is really good, and you should really go check them out. So skullhooker.com for that. And the more I do this show, guys, the more I realize that this is really an all-encompassing podcast, guys. And this one thing that I've talked about before ad nauseum is the things that are important to me are important to you, are important to all of us. I'm trying to make the outdoors more accessible to people. Hunting is getting expensive, all right? I talk about that almost every hunting show that I do. But basically, my whole point with bringing you something that is of value to you, like ways to preserve your trophy, is so you can have a room full of this stuff without breaking the bank, without it costing you a second mortgage on your house, And I've got some really nice overall shoulder mounts that I have in here. I'll tell you the truth, a lot of them I've traded for. I've done website work, or I've done digital marketing, or whatever the case may be, for a lot of taxidermists over the year, and I've gotten a lot of this, in trade, but it doesn't have to cost you a ton of money to get a gar mount, alligator gar, or a long nose gar, or short nose gar, or lean nose gar, mounted and done like that. It doesn't cost a lot of money to get a skull hooker and to boil out your own plaque, or a skull hooker plaque, and boil out your own head. It doesn't. But again, one of the best options you can look at is paying somebody to do it. But either way, you've got to have a way to put it on the wall. And one of the best elegant ways you can do that is with skull hooker, like I talked about. Of course, you can get wood plaques. You can get all kinds of different things like that. But these don't take up much room, meaning that you can put more stuff on your wall and have less issues with being too crowded. And you can, it's just a great way to display your Euro mounts, which is really cool. So that's what I mainly wanted to talk about on this show, is the Euro mounts. I've got a picture of the hog that's dipped in Cryptek. I'll definitely show you a picture of that. I'm looking at him right now. The neat thing about this too, just to get a little deep for a moment, is that, however you boil out or pay somebody to boil out your skull or whatever, and I didn't give all the directions and all the stuff. You can find YouTube videos on this, articles, whatever you want to, on how to boil out a skull, all right? It's different for everybody, has their own different way to do it, all right? But I want to make sure you don't breathe in those vapors of the laundry detergent and stuff like that boiling. Again, it gets nasty real quick, so do it outside with the turkey fryer and with a big stock pot and a propane burner. But the thing that you want to watch out for is that, this is not just for you. This is for the future generation too. This is for, like I said, my son Jackson got his first hog Euro mounted, and or just Europeanized, I guess you want to call it, just boiled out. We've got a boiled out skull. I'm going to get a skull hooker, some kind of display his hog mount. And really make it look elegant and everything like that. But the thing about it all is that this is showing the next generation how cool it is to have a Euro mount. I mean, this is showing the next generation how cool it is to preserve something that you did yourself if you want to boil out your own skull. This is showing the future generation how all this works and how to break down the skull and what all the different working parts of the skull and the jaw muscles and the brain and all that other stuff, man. My son gets fascinated about that kind of stuff, and it's the kind of stuff that really makes my socks go up and down, because it's something that is of value to me, showing the next generation how stuff works. Okay, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do with that, but I mean, there's just so much you can do on a budget. And I've been on a budget my whole adult life, ever since I got out of college. And I was a broke college student at some point. You know, I've always been one that doesn't believe he should pay more than he has to. And I don't think you have to pay that much to get something. And so whether it's doing a trophy mount, you know, a Euro mount, or doing paying $525 to get a whitetail mount or whatever, it's the best whitetail you've ever had. And I've got my best whitetail archery buck behind me, Mr. Big. I've talked about him a lot on this show. I've got him a shoulder mount. That was a special deer to me. But if you're looking to preserve a special deer that looks really cool and really elegant, you know, these are just some ideas to give you something that you can do on your own. Make a weekend project of it. Make it to be a cold one drinking project, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, you know, it's a great way to kind of hang around the boiling pot and tell some stories and BS a little bit, and just, you know, just have fun in the outdoors. It's just another way to connect, and it's another facet of what we do in the outdoors. I'm gonna take another drink here. Cheers. All right. The way that we do, you know, the things that we do in the outdoors, is about spending time with each other. It's about community. It's about the spirit of the outdoors, or as Ted Nugent calls it, the spirit of the wild. The spirit of the wild is running free, as I think the words of that song go. But I mean, the thing for me is that it's all encompassing of what we are in the outdoors. We are the dominant predator. We are the one that goes out and dominates nature, but it's also to feed our family. It's also to make a preservation of a memory. It's also to, and that's what this is really about. It's also to preserve something that you'll remember for the rest of your life, and something that will be of value to you for your lifetime and your children's lifetime. Like I said, above me, I've got two horn mounts, or I'm sorry, antler mounts that are just skullcap mounts. That are I've done my own custom you know, fabric over the horns and that kind of thing, and put them on their own custom plaques. And basically they're both wood plaques, but you can use the bone bracket to preserve, you know, and they have a skull cap for these as well. If you just have a horn mount that you want to show on a skull hooker. So there's another skull hooker plug there. But basically these are memories of my grandparents. These are memories of my dad's dad and my mom's dad. And the time, I mean, you know, my dad's dad passed away in 2005, right when I started getting into hunting and fishing real heavy. And my mom's dad passed away. That grandfather passed away in '86, when I was probably, I guess, 7 years old back then. And you know, I cherish those things that I have from them guys. That is just so much a part of their legacy and their heritage. And that's the thing with preserving things that are of value, of memories, of stories, of pictures, of all those different things that we can use to do that kind of stuff. And what Chester Moore is doing in his series is basically discovering some trophy rooms and stuff like that, and things that are of value like that. Because the thing that's most important about all of that is passing on that to future generations. It's passing that on to your kids and your kids' friends and the people that he hangs out with, you know, or she hangs out with, and just having that preservation of that memory for life. So whether it be a picture, whether it be a picture with a skull mount, whether it be a picture with a Euro mount, whether it be a picture with a skull cap mount, you know, whatever the case may be, you really have so much to pass on to the next generation in the outdoors. And it doesn't matter how many horns you have hanging on your wall, or how many antlers you have hanging in your office, or whatever the case may be. This is all encompassing. This is what it's all about. It is all about the greater good. It's all about preserving that memory for the future. And I know I've kind of gone off and ad-libbed and all this stuff, but I really, really mean that, you know, it's kind of cool to do it yourself, is what I'm trying to get to. But it's also kind of cool if you have somebody do it and then you mount it elegantly in your home, something that you'd be proud to display in your living room, and not just something that looks good in your office, okay, or looks good into your man cave. And that's why I like Skullhooker stuff so much, is because they really, really make anything that you display very, very elegant and very professional and very sleek and very stylish, and all the other acronyms that go along with it. It's just really, really good stuff. So, there's just so much to talk about here, guys, but I don't want to keep you guys forever on this show. I've done a bunch of long shows lately, so I'm going to do a shorter show this podcast. But I mean, whether it is hunting an exotic and getting it in Thompson Temple's record book of exotics, I mean, that's awesome. I've been following Crossbow Nation on my Facebook feed lately. The engagement of those kind of guys that are showing pictures of their 8-year-old and their 10-year-old and their 9-year-old, having pictures of them with their first crossbow kill. Holy smokes, that's awesome. And also, are having their first hog, their first deer, their first whatever the case may be. I live for that kind of stuff. And we have a whole photo gallery that we do, photo of the day, photo of the week on Facebook, on our Facebook page. You can check that out at fishgame.com and submit your photo of the day. We try to knock those out pretty regularly as well. I'm going to start a photo contest here pretty soon with some of these flash drive readers, the SD card readers that I have that are mobile optimized, and then the green flashlights that I have as well. So we'll be doing some stuff with that. Now, if you've not already checked out our newsletters, we have three every week. We have a Tactical Tuesday, we have Wildlife Wednesday, Wilderness Wednesday it's now called, and the Thursday Texas State of the Outdoor Nation. Now, that all being said, we also have the Whitetail National. That comes out once every other week. All right, so every 2 weeks you get the Whitetail National every other week. So there's that. The Turkey National comes out in the spring. The Hog Wild one that we've looked at sending out for a while too. That's another one that's going to be coming out pretty soon. I mean, there's just a lovely, lovely amount of stuff that's coming on that's content from us. And our whole goal of the magazine and goal for everybody is to teach everyday people how they can go out and hunt and fish and have the best of the outdoors. That's what this podcast is. This podcast theme has been since I started it 4 years ago, was something that would be of value to everybody and accessible to everybody that listens. And that's my whole goal with this show and what I try to do and that kind of stuff. So just to review what we talked about today. Boil out your own head, pay somebody else to boil it out. Use a skull hooker or some kind of other mounting plaque method. Just elegant way to display mounts in your office or your home or your man cave, and just a lot of different things here. Check out Wilson Wildlife. Check out our friends at skullhooker.com, wilson-wildlife.com, Mike Wilson. Just a lot of great things going on, guys, that are coming down the pike that we're doing here at the magazine. The October issue is out and has been out for a little while now. You'll be getting this probably in late October. So November issue should be out right after this episode airs. I'm doing this episode a little bit in advance because our social media team that does all of our Facebook and stuff like that and our newsletters is going to be out of the I don't know, out of the country, but they're going to be out of pocket for the next couple of weeks. And so I'm trying to get this one done so we can have a podcast for the next newsletter cycle. And that's why I'm doing this one today in early October for late October. So that's the reason I normally do these, a week beforehand. But I just love this, guys. This is so cathartic and healthy for me. This is so beneficial to my own expression of life that I want to give to you, that I want to impact you, so you will go and impact others to make a positive impact in the outdoors, for our wildlife, for our children, for your friends and family, for the immediate circle that you have to benefit. In Orlando and Jeremy and all you guys that listen to every episode, I love you guys all so hard. It is just absolutely awesome that you've taken the time to download this. Please subscribe. Please tell a friend. Please also give us a 5-star rating on iTunes or wherever you found this show, whether it is on Stitcher or iTunes or our friends over at TuneIn or any of that stuff. You can even listen to the Best of the Outdoors on Alexa now. It's awesome, man. So thank you to Skull Hooker and Dr. Mike Wilson with Wilson Wildlife for sponsoring this show. And I love this, guys. I love this. I could do this all day. And just the thing that I want to leave you with is just to get out there and get something going. It's hunting season now, all right? And we're getting ready to enter when this podcast releases and when it goes into its second week. We're going to get ready to get into hunting season. I'm trying to get Jackson and behind an AR-15 to be accurate with the 223 and get him a deer or a hog or whatever that comes out this year at the deer blind where I hunt out of Mason and Brady, and just to share that time with him. And it doesn't even matter if he kills anything this year or not yet. I just to have that time of family in the outdoors, just to have the experience to be a co-creator with God in the outdoors, to be a blessing to other people and a blessing to wildlife in the outdoors, to be a beacon of hope for our next generation and for generations that are yet unborn. Yes, I know I'm getting deep. Generations that are yet unborn yet. I absolutely love every minute of the outdoors, guys, and I want you to embrace it with that same passion and that same love and that same I love when I do solo shows. I get on so many different tangents, but I have nobody to say, hey, Dustin, let's talk about this. But there's so much beauty in life. There's so many things to be thankful and grateful for. And I want to, as we close this show down, to just remind you to just give thanks to God for all that you've been given, for all that you have had, for all that you have, and for all that you shall have. That's one of my frequent prayers. Thank you, God, for all that I have, for all I shall have, and for all I do have. And not necessarily in that order, but it's just there's so much out there to explore. There's so much out there to consume and enjoy and give back. And there's so many opportunities out there through these Crosswater Outfitters, which is my organization. Bridges International. There's just so many different veteran organizations. There's so many different outdoor ministry organizations you could plug into and be a blessing there, and I encourage you to do that as well. So that's me, kind of my last segment ramblings there. But anyway, thank you guys so much for telling a friend and watching and reading and listening. Have an awesome day in the outdoors. We'll see you next time.